Hello and welcome to the channel. Isa, I come from another planet as I'm licking off the tahini on my steering wheel. Okay, so in my last video I didn't explain well something. And it was the story that I needed to share with you all about the hawks. Okay, so one of the things that I've been doing on this planet, one of my planets, planet Earth, is advancing. The most important and the overall piece has been about advancing the evolution of all of life on Earth. And that requires me to make key connections, key points, point of contact, origin, insertion, being able to, with all life, not just human, animal life. And what I was saying in my last video about the hawks was that I learn as I go along. I'm just learning myself when I'm here. Like, I myself am learning. Once you put something into motion, then you can play into it. You can play with it. And you can understand and you can interact with it. Just like if you have a child, the child learns something, they'll start interacting with you and feeding back things that you've shared with them. And then that's a chance where you get to correct and say, no, that wasn't what I was trying to share. Or you could also learn from their view because they might have seen it in a different way, which will allow you to also grow. So what I was mentioning about hawks was this. There was a hawk that, well, first of all, I should speak from, it's always better to speak from the victim's point of view. And knowing that the overall idea is that the karmic law is real, which is the law of action. It's real throughout the whole universe. There's nowhere that you are not subjected to the consequences of actions, the outcomes. And that's why meditation is so important, because we can meditate on things before we do them, and we can decide whether that's going to be a good idea. Now, Peaceful was my rooster. I say he was my rooster, but really he was a master in a rooster's body. And he got me involved in rescuing birds. I didn't realize that I knew as soon as I saw him and I laid eyes on him, he was just a little chick, and I thought he was actually a pigeon, a baby pigeon dove. He looked just like one. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and we both, in each other's eyes, I knew right away that he was like myself. We recognized each other. And then it took me a while to be able to actually take him home with me, which was very trying on his trust, because there were times that I had to leave him and he turned away looking like I'd betrayed him. And since he was so small and young, it was very, very difficult. Very, very difficult to ever help him to understand that that wasn't the case. It was because we had known each other in past lives, and when you're on the earth, some things happen that are just so unfair. This planet is not a fair planet. But time heals all wounds, and the truth is that we live forward, we live forward, we live forward, and we understand backwards. And yet everything is a multi-puzzle piece. So throughout Peaceful's life, first he had a very unique upbringing. This was during COVID, so when he was just a baby, him and his two other part of his posse, Daphne and Tansy, who just were basically his little gang, his little posse, and they'd follow him around and he would make the decisions. And he's a little Leo, so, he was the boss. And he would make decisions and then they would follow. And so I took them because everything was closed and you had to ride a bike or walk into parks, and I loved that. So it was very quiet. And there were a lot of fires too, so people just stayed at home. A lot of lockdowns. And so we went in the park, and from the very moment he saw a hawk, he knew. He started getting visions of his own death, of how they were going to kill him. And he knew about the hawks, and he was always weary. And he used to make contact with hawks, like in a tree beyond. I would see him just standing there, just completely quiet and silent, staring up into a tree. And I realized, oh, it was a hawk. And that happened many times throughout his life. That he was a very, very wise and conscious being. And he used to get up close to one of the other chickens, one of the other birds, and turn and look right in their eyes and just stare at them for a good long time. Like you would just never see that happening. He was so conscious and so aware. And he was so generous, and he was perfect. I mean, he was a perfect love. He was a perfect being. He was a perfected bird. He was able to fly all the way across the lake at some point. So as I would take them on flying lessons, I called them, I would take them to these branches. They'd fly up on one branch, then they'd fly up to another branch, and they'd fly up to another branch. Of course, we always had to deal with, as people started to come out of the woodwork again, rude, mean, jealous, misunderstanding people who didn't realize what I was doing was something unique that no one had done really before, and that I was taking chickens, which are jungle fowl, and turning them into wild animals and letting them become their wild animal selves, but connect also very deeply with human animals. Because for me, here's my flesh. I look like a human animal, right? Okay. So I have a human animal body. It's possible that you'd find some DNA that was not from here. And that's just because I seeded the earth many years ago with my people. Now I know you're going to think, wow, anyone who's impatient is not going to be able to handle this and will stop this video by now. Great. Well then do that, and I'm going to keep going on. When eventually, and during the time when his beloved had died, all from the hands of very hateful people who subjected me to staying away too long, and then she ended up dying because they held me captive against my will. And when she died, and it was devastating, Daphne, and we buried her up on the top of this mountain over here, this one, that PC, I'm an animal communicator. Like in human world, that's something new and unusual, but it's just the way everything is on my planet. Like animals and humans, we're all animals. We all know. The human animal knows every language and knows every animal's. When you align with the consciousness itself, then you're able to pick up that energy, and then you receive the images of what the animal is communicating. The animal will communicate via images, feelings, and thoughts, and then also sounds. And he showed me a vision of the hawk killing him, and he shuddered. That was during Daphne's funeral. And then he tried to walk away from me. He turned his back on me, and I was really worried for him. And I thought about it for a minute, like, should I let him go? He could probably handle it in the wild. And I was like, I told him I was just talking to him about it, kind of going over what exactly would be the issue. And I said, well, one is that you would not have any other chickens to mate with, to have a family with. You'd be totally alone. You wouldn't probably be able to mate with any other type of animal, any other type of bird. And because of that, you would end up dying or being killed. Do you want to live that, or do you want to live with me and I could bring you other animals, other chickens that you could be friends with? And he decided to come with me. And he turned, as he was turning to walk away from me, he came back and decided to come with me. And then, so when the hawk, that very formidable day, and I had known a month before. I had known a month ago before that he was going to die, and I said he's going to die, and I'm like, no, we're not going to let him die. And we would keep him, he would even hide out. He was hiding out away from it from happening. Even if he saw a hawk up in the sky when we were driving, he'd see it from the sunroof or from the car, the windshield, or from the window. He knew. And if I had not left the house that day and had kept them in, it wouldn't have happened. We would have been able to buy some more time. But out of absolute disdain, I don't know if that's the word, but basically the toxic energy of the people around that neighborhood was so bad, I didn't want to stay. I said, we're going to go out here to this wilderness area. And then I was dealing with, because as I mentioned to you guys, and I've been trying to explain on this channel what it is to be from another planet, and how different it is, and how many human animals are so toxic for us. They're so toxic. They're poisonous because of the way they are living on this planet right now. And I'm going to just turn this like this so you guys will really hear. When you turn off your eyes, on opens your heart and you're able to listen better. There was someone who I'd known who had been treated very badly, but he was also really not dealing with it properly. And part of his being treated badly was the fact that he continued to try to eat animal products even though he knew it was bad. He knew it was wrong for his particular type. And he continued to do it. And so he was getting punished for that, but he was also bringing really, really bad energy to me. And so I was on the phone with him and I was dealing with that for a moment. And out before that, my 2 chickens wanted to come out of the car. Suki and Leo. I'm not Leo, sorry. Suki and Peaceful and Peacey. And I said to them in a real, just like under my breath, oh no, you guys need to come back in. And I got them to come back in the car. And then they were like, no, we really want to go out. And it was because of Suki that they went, because she was really like, no, let's go. And when they went out, for just a few minutes went by while I was in the car, I was on the phone. And I looked out and there Peacey was. There was a whiteness and I couldn't tell because the whole sky had been so gray that day. You could barely see anything. It was like fog and gray, and it was a very kind of a depressing day. I didn't hear a single thing. I didn't hear a shriek. I didn't hear a sound. But when I saw the white, I was like, what is that? And I opened the door and the hawk flew up to the wire. As if he was in trouble. Because then when I saw Peacey laying there looking like he was lifeless on the ground, I was devastated. And so the eggs are for the hawks. Because we're going to run out of space here. Like, share, subscribe.